Anyway, let's talk about this matchup. Let's talk about how it's going to break down. Villanova is a 5-point favorite according to Bet Rivers. I want to ask you guys this, and we're going to go game through game, breaking this stuff down. But I want to ask you guys this: what is the X factor? What's the most important matchup here? What is it going to be? The thing that decides this game. We're gonna talk about all four of these games. I want to go Villanova and Michigan first. T.O., I'm going to you on this one. What's the X factor in that matchup?
Which post player wins? And it's going to be the post player Hunter Dickinson or Colin Gillespie, because I'm curious to find out how either team guards either guy. That's the biggest thing going in. When Colin Gillespie gets the ball in the post, are you throwing a second defender at him? Who are you going to have guarding him to begin with? Is Hunter Dickinson going to be guarding out on the perimeter? Or are you going to try to keep him in? Interested to see what Juwan Howard does with him. And then on the other side, Villanova has traditionally switched 1 through 5. It's not good news for Villanova if Colin Gillespie gets stuck down there on Hunter Dickinson. There's no wrong or right way to cut it. It's going to be difficult for him to be able to operate down there defensively. How soon are they going to throw the help towards him? And then is Hunter Dickinson going to be able to make that extra pass? He struggled with that at times, passing out of the post, passing out of double teams. That's been an issue for him at certain points during this season. It's the battle of the post players. One just happens to be 6'2", the other one happens to be 7'2".
Carter,
I'm just a little offended that you were talking about post players and you had the audacity to put Colin Gillespie in there with Hunter Dickinson. I know where you're going with it. But we always talk about point guard play on here, and you had your one chance to talk about the big men, and you threw Colin in there. For me, I think the X factor is going to be whoever's going to be that one other person that when they send that double, because I believe that Villanova is going to send that double at Hunter Dickinson. And I think it's going to have a lot to do with if a guy like Eli Brooks or a guy like Caleb Houston is ready to step up and knock down shots, especially Caleb Houston, because he's been so off and on this year. For anyone who's watched Michigan basketball, Caleb Houston, sometimes when he plays in Ann Arbor, it looks like one of the best shooters in the country. Like, his form is beautiful. He knocks down threes. It looks great, and it really keeps the defense on their toes, and you can't really send a double team off of him. But there's also times where, like you saw last game, he can go 0 for 6. 0 for 7, those type of games happen for him. So I think him having the ability to knock down threes when they send that double, I think are going to be huge in this game. So I'm really looking forward to what Houston's going to do in this game, and maybe even a guy like Eli Brooks continuing to step up like he did last game.
Mine's kind of along the same lines as both of you. I think it's going to end up being Jermaine Samuels, right? Because what Villanova has done basically for the last decade has been switching into mismatches that are bad for them, right? They're not afraid to have their point guard guarding bigger players. They're not afraid to have their big guys getting switched out onto lead guards. They've been ahead of the curve on kind of the modernization of basketball. They've been doing this for a long time. What that means is that Jermaine Samuels is going to get switched into mismatches quite a bit. And it means that Eric Dixon is going to get switched into mismatches quite a bit. And it means that you're going to have some of these guards guarding some of these bigger players. And to me, what it comes down to is, will Jermaine Samuels be better at defending some of the bigger bodies that Michigan has than Michigan's players are at defending him out on the perimeter? And like Samuels, I want him to be better than he is, right? I want him to be, with his athleticism, he's been in Michigan for 4 years. I feel like at this point he should be an NBA player. That's what Villanova does. They churn out pros that are basically built like him, and it hasn't happened. And I think if he gets 15, right, if he knocks down 3 or 4 threes, then that to me is kind of the difference maker here. I need official predictions from you guys on this. Tio, I think we've talked about it. You're on Villanova, right?
Yeah, I like Villanova. I think they're just going to be able to figure it out. And another reason is because they just never get rattled. And I know Greg Waddell's not going to be too happy with what I'm saying, but this Michigan team, they've been so up and down. And Caleb Houston, I'm telling you, I've watched 5 or 6 games. I know his percentages are great, but I've only seen him hit one myself. And it's like he's so inconsistent. You need him to be really good. But I like your point, Dauster, about Jermaine Samuels, because he has to be good in order to pull Hunter Dickinson away from the rim. I think that's one thing to look at too.
I'm betting on Samuels in that matchup. What about you, Carter?
Yeah, I'm going with Villanova in this game. I don't think it's going to be a runaway like some people. Like, I've seen a couple things out there where Villanova's just kind of run away with this basketball game. Bring Hunter Dickinson out, of course, get him away from the basket. I do think that the game is going to be close, but I think Villanova will eventually just kind of the cream rise to the top. I think it's going to be close throughout. Maybe they'll pull away like in the last 5 minutes or whatnot. But I just think that
you think they'll cover?
They'll be able to get. I think they will cover. I believe it's at 4.5, according to our good friends over at Bet Rivers. And I would side with Villanova on that, but it would be close. I feel like you'll be sweating it out.
Yeah, I think that they win by double digits. I think it's like a 10 or 12 point game when it's all said and done. Villanova doesn't run away from people really, but I just think that they kind of, you got to trust the team that's been there. You got to trust the team, the veteran point guards. Colin Gillespie has a championship to his name. Do you remember who did they beat when they won the title in 2018?
I want to say they wore maize and blue. It might have been Michigan. I think it was, wasn't it?
Was that a blowout? That might have been a blowout, right?
Yeah, I think that put Dante DiVincenzo in the lottery, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, because he had that dunk, didn't he? Okay.
Yeah,
well, anyway, we're getting the bump from producer Greg Waddell, who is a Wolverines fan, to tell us to keep it moving. So, Carter, I'm coming to you first on this one. We have Gonzaga, we have Arkansas. It is the first game of the day on Thursday, which is weird because they're playing it in San Francisco. So it's going to be an afternoon game, which means you got to fight all of the traffic in San Francisco to be able to get there. Gonzaga is an 8.5 point favorite. Can Eric Musselman and can the Hogs be able to do enough to slow down that front court? Where you at?
Yeah, I honestly just don't think they will be able to. I think in these first two games we have seen, Arkansas's offense in general away from Bud Walton Arena has been suspect to say the least. And these first two tournament games, they have been the definition of rock fights. Now, credit to them for being able to play good enough defense to come out with wins, and for JD Note to make a couple plays down the stretch and other guys make some plays down the stretch to get these wins. But that game against New Mexico State was one of the ugliest basketball games I've ever seen. Great strategy by Coach Musselman setting that defense at Teddy Allen, but I just don't know if they will be able.
We don't talk about
get enough stops.
We don't talk about Teddy on this show.
Sorry, that one guy whose name rhymes with Schmallen had himself a 37 ball, but they were able to slow him down, and it worked out for them. I just don't think that they'll be able to get enough stops. I just don't think they're playing Gonzaga, who is the number one offense in the country. And I think they'll be able to get some stops. I just don't see Arkansas being able to score enough in this basketball game. I really think that Gonzaga runs away with this, actually. It's about time they blow somebody out.
Away.
And I think it's going to be Arkansas. Yeah.
Here's the thing that I disagree with you is you're giving Eric Musselman 5 days. And that's kind of where the whole issue is for me, is because he's one of the best in the business when it comes to that stuff. And they're athletic enough to at least slow them down, maybe cut off some of these advanced passes, make them play a little bit slower. Gonzaga is really, really good. I keep looking at their metrics and at their KenPom metrics, and I'm just like, gosh, it doesn't get much better.
What about Torvik?
No, I haven't been checking. I haven't pulled out my Torvik. I like KenPom. I like KenPom. I leave my Torvik at home. So the KenPom, I like KenPom because that's what I used when I was coaching, and I love that. I love the whole system. But I wonder how much it's skewed by them playing in their league. So there's something about Eric Musselman and his guys that can get them to play up to the level of competition, and the fact that maybe not the best player on the floor, but JD Note could be the best scoring guard on the floor, and I think that could give him some advantages. But Jalen Williams has been really good as well. I'm not sure it'll be a runaway. I think it's possible that it is, especially if Arkansas can't slow him down. But I have too much faith in Musselman. I think it's going to be close.
Yeah, I that's the one thing I'm worried about. I think this is the game where Gonzaga wakes up, right? Like they kind of got Memphis jumping on them a little bit. They needed a Drew Timme masterclass in the second half to be able to survive. And I totally understand the idea that Eric Musselman, great game planner, probably is going to find a way to make something happen here. But if this feels, Carter, I agree with you. This feels like the Gonzaga runaway spot to me. Just feels like it. Yeah. So I think I would probably
that second round. The second round game against Memphis was the one they were struggling, and now they shake it off and they get rolling.
Yeah, and Are you saying that Arkansas isn't as good as Memphis? Just out of curiosity,
I just think
because those universities are fairly close to each other. So I'm curious what you guys think.
They're not as far off as you think.
I think I would make the argument that Memphis right now and Arkansas are exactly the same, and Arkansas is a worse matchup for Gonzaga than Memphis was. I think Memphis was the ideal matchup, just so tough and physical and athletic. And they're not those dudes aren't necessarily scared of the moment. We'll be I don't know if the Arkansas players will be, but let's keep it moving because we got to talk about Texas Tech and the Duke Blue Devils. Carter, we're going to you first on this one. Texas Tech is, I believe, they're still a point favorite over at Bet Rivers. Do you have the Red Raiders advancing? I know what TO is going to say, so I don't know what I'm going to say.
Oh, I do have the Red Raiders advancing. I've been team Red Raiders all year, and I think that what they do defensively is special, and I think that they will be able to take advantage of this Duke team who's been inconsistent throughout the year. And I think the inconsistencies are going to come back to bite them, especially with what Tech can do defensively. The one issue that I have with this Tech team is that they turn the ball over a lot just because they don't really have a true point guard or a true go-to guy. But this Duke team doesn't cause turnovers. Like I've actually looked into this. Duke is 309th nationally in turnover rate. They don't turn anybody over. So I think Texas Tech will pull this game out. I think the defense will get it done. And I think Coach K's farewell tour will finally take its last stop.
Here's my problem with thinking Duke can do it. And they said AJ Griffin is going to play. So that's obviously going to be huge because he had a pretty nice little ankle sprain there in their game against Michigan State. But you got to knock down shots against Texas Tech, and you got to have guys that can make that skip pass against Texas Tech because they're pre-rotating everything. They're already in help side before you even make a move to the bucket. That opposite 45, that opposite corner is going to be open. You got to have guys that can hit that shot. Duke has not been overly consistent shooting the three ball outside of AJ Griffin. So I wonder about that. Jeremy Roach has been better as of late. Joey Baker has been Joey Baker. He's been fine at times shooting the basketball, but I wonder about their consistency from the perimeter. I think everything inside 15 feet, even as big and athletic as Duke is, I think Texas Tech is just physically going to dominate in there because that is a bunch of junkyard dogs. And they're so physically tough. I think it's going to be a difficult matchup for Duke inside of there, even with Mark Williams, even with Paolo Banchero. Those guys can guard those guys straight up one-on-one, and they're not afraid of anything. They're such tough competitors. So I like Texas Tech in that one just because more than anything, all those other things included, but more than anything, their inability to shoot the three consistently.
Yeah, you got to have shooters to be able to beat that no-middle defense. I've talked about this before, but what they do is they basically climb up. They don't let you rotate the ball. They force you to drive baseline, and they pre-send that help because there's only one way that you can go. Only one way that you can be a threat is by driving baseline. They're going to have the help there. They're going to pre-rotate, and they're going to try to pick off the passes when they force you to drive into somebody at the charge spot. You got to be able to have someone that can make those slow drives, be able to scan the defensive five shooters on the weak side of the floor. I don't trust Duke to be able to do that, which is why I like Texas Tech. The only thing I'm worried about, Paolo might go supernova. There's always a chance he could end up having one of those 25, 10, and 5 games. And that scares me a little bit. All right, Houston, Arizona. I think this is a great matchup for Houston. I have Houston winning. They force turnovers. They get offensive rebounds. T.O., where do you stand on the Cougars?
You know what? Watching Houston play was such a pleasure in their last game. It's just they don't – against Illinois, they don't let anything happen easily. Like there isn't a swing pass that's easy. There's not a cut to the basket that's easy off the ball. They're going to compete for every single rebound. Like this Houston team, without their best 2 players or their top 2 scorers or whatever, like they are tough, man. And they're just next man up mentality. Sampson, who's not my coach of the year, but he would probably be second place for me behind Ed Cooley. Like the fact that they lose 2 of their top players, still continue to play at the level that they're playing at. That Illinois game wasn't even close. I mean, Houston's athletes, they just send them at you in waves. And here's the big thing about Arizona is Kirk Kriisa, they need him to be probably at 90% because he is
the definitive X factor that's left in the tournament, right? He is the X factor.
No question. No question. Carter? And that ankle that has a million different colors, like it's going to be so difficult for him to be able to get any type of advantage. Did I just cut everybody off?
Yeah, you did. No, go ahead, T.O. When you're rolling, T.O., we just let you go.
Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead, Carter.
No, I was gonna comment on the X factor thing with Kirk Kriisa because, you know, when you say X factor, I feel like it carries a positive connotation. But with a player like Kerr Kriisa, his X factor could go either way. It could be the X factor for the other team to get a win, or it could be an X factor for them to get a win. Sometimes you got to take a step back for the betterment of the team. I think Kerr Kriisa thinks he's the best player on that basketball team, which is great confidence and leads to great results. But Benedict Mathurin is going to be the guy that helps these guys cut down the nets in the Final Four. And I think there's moments where he can get the ball more to Benedict Mathurin, and he doesn't do that. We saw what TCU was able to do against this team on the glass, and that's nothing compared to what Houston does on the offensive glass. So I think they're going to be able to take that same advantage. Defensively, like T.O. said, they're going to be able to step up and get stops, cause havoc. All they need is one guy to step up offensively. Like first game, Kyler Edwards looked like an All-American. Last game, Jamal Shedd was able to step up and carry the scoring load with 20 points. If they get one guy that could step up and get that 20 points, I think it helps get them over the hump to get the win. And I got a feeling that Kyler Edwards will be able to do that. He seems pretty locked in right now.